Councillors, please take their seat. Thank you. We'll start the meeting with karakia from Councillor Galloway.
E te hui, whaia te matauranga kia marama, kia...
Kia ora. Right, there's no apologies. I understand a couple of councillors need to leave a little bit early, but we should be finished by then. And also just to note that Councillor Goff is zooming in. I've had no declarations of interest.
Sorry, should be an apology from James Daniels.
Okay.
He's out of town.
I have an apologies now from Councillor Daniels. I didn't have it. Who would like to move that? Pauline, seconded by Phil. All those in favour?
Aye. Aye.
Carried. There's no declarations of interest. Confirmation of previous minutes, 9th of December 2020. Happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Jimmy Chen. All those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public forum. There's two public forums today. We have to talk to the consultation period on the Wheels to Wings major cycleway. First up is Yvonne Palmer. Carol? Thank you. Carol Evans. Thank you. Welcome. You'll just need to push the wee little button in front of you. Yeah, perfect.
Good morning, councillors and staff, and Mr Chairman. Thanks for letting us talk. I'm here as an independent resident who lives at Wesley Village, and I exit out onto Marblewood Drive. I have a letterbox with 5C on it, so I'm an independent resident, and I did receive the brochure because of that. But there were 50 other people who didn't actually receive a brochure that live at Wesley, who are as independent as I am, and actually walk or use their people like you need to be aware of that. I have personally spoken to many people who did not see the pamphlet, and I'm speaking on their behalf. There are 50 independent people living like me in Wesley. Mobility scooters, wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs. Daily at the Christchurch Methodist Mission, up to 50 people working. None of them had a brochure. There were 60 or more, 160 people in the hospital section, no brochure at all. They travel, they park their car on Marblewood Drive. They are also affected and not been had received a brochure. So I've spoken to all those workers and been told to speak up on their behalf to ask for an extension. Papanui High School, I've asked them, any of the pupils seen any of the brochures? No, but they walk along Marblewood Drive, cross the road into and then the other road, Langdon. We got up to 60 or more visitors too actually arrive at Wesley with their motor cars, and it can be more. Our car park at Wesley is totally filled. Most days there's doctors and nurses that actually also come into the car park, but staff don't. They actually park on the outside, or they can try and catch a bus, but not always at the times they want them, especially the night staff. As a city, I really beg you to actually give people more time to consider it. And I think when we look at the past, those things that have been done well have been done because people have had an opportunity to have their say. They're not something that's actually just been drawn up. Here's a nice picture of what's going to be done without really thinking about the total community, because Harewood Road belongs to all of Christchurch, not just us that live around it. That is used as a major highway at times for people getting to the airport. It's a favourite place for people saying they're going to the airport, they want to be quick, they use Harewood Road straight through and round the back when they get down the end of the road. So it needs all those things. I don't know whether they existed. When I read the brochure, I didn't feel they had. So in summary, if we are to do major improvements in Harewood Road, then it is the duty of our city to extend the consultation time and include the many people who I've actually talked about so that they too can have their say on the extension of things that happen in their city. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I'll just quickly touch on a couple of points because I spoke to Yvonne briefly last night and she mentioned
Yes.
one of the places you've spoke about, which I've already passed on to the engagement team, but they'll be able to review this public forum too and make sure that those places that you've discussed are actually engaged with the pamphlets. And once Yvonne's spoken, I'll talk to the actual consultation process.
So the process will be just the 3 consultations that are on the back here, or they're not actually consultations, they're actually
Drop-in
come
sessions.
along, we may talk to you if you've got time. If there was a big crowd, you wouldn't even be able to get in. Little old lady like me, I'm 84, I'm not likely to be able to in the front with all the young ones trying to have their say. So is that all we're getting as far as...
Your 5 minutes is up, but I will talk to the whole process once Yvonne's finished
Yep.
speaking.
Cool, thank you.
Do you mind if I sit?
You can
Thanks.
say.
Mr Chairman, Councillor Davidson and councillors and staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning and request an extension of the closing date, and it needs to be longer than 1 week. The reason for this is that consultation plans have not been delivered to residents and possibly home businesses. And I include Nurse Maud's staff in there because my nurse this morning said that only she found out about it from me last Friday. Schools are just returning, public holidays on Monday the 8th of February in their letterbox, or it hasn't arrived. This is a significant project of $19 million. And I wonder if Safer Christchurch have been involved in this as well as Nurse Maud. Yet there have been no change plan. I've seen no change plan providing the impact assessments, the readiness conditions, identification of the stakeholders. I've discovered yesterday I've got a neighbour that successes look like. All this information should have been available and so important for the community to know when making a submission. Looking at other timeframes for consultation by this council has been interesting. And I'm going to highlight proposed $10 million for Christchurch Cathedral. It had 2 months consultation for just supporting or declining the $10 million grant. Yet St Albans, they have had some major 2019 and then in July and August 2019, after 50 changes, they had an extension. I just want to highlight a couple of things. Being very involved in making submissions with Mr Mitchell and other people in the Local Government Act and the Shirley Papanui Community Boards, all Christchurch Community Boards were given a solicitor. And I look at the 6 guiding principles set out in the Act of 2002, Section 14, which requires all councils to take a consistent approach to their activities. Is this a consistent approach? There are 6 guiding principles, and I just want to highlight a couple. Councils must provide anyone who will or may be affected by the decision, or anyone who has an interest in the decision, with reasonable access to relevant information. And these people should be encouraged to express their views to council. There are 4 more on there, but I really want to highlight those. And also under your significant engagement policy, there is a very strong written policy there done in November 2019. Have you reviewed that and had a look at, does that comply with this wings to wheels or wheels to wings consultation? I'm here, I'm being very involved in the community because I believe that this community needs to be consulted well and encouraged to make these submissions. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Yvonne. I think one of the most important things for consultation is also public awareness. I think what we've heard and seen of late is actually there's quite a lot of public awareness around this consultation. We have listened to obviously you and Carol, and we were aware of this public forum coming, and also there was another person that requested an extension. We originally looked at 1 week, but we've had a discussion and we're going to extend that out to 2 weeks. So therefore the consultation will close on the 8th of March instead of what we suggested was the 1st of March. I think one of the things to note about this is normally most consultations don't start till a little bit later in January, but it was a decision made by this council at the annual plan to do the consultation and design to enable the intersection to be built at Gardeners Breens, Harewood. So once we put that time and date, basically we had to work back from there, which created the consultation starting point of the 22nd of January, which created a little bit of issue with that Christmas period. So obviously having a look at it, realising there's some concern out there, we have decided to actually extend the consultation period and longer than that 1 week that I emailed you the other day as well. But thank you, and we'll have a look at also the public forums that you've spoken to, just to make sure we get the engagement right. But the feedback is coming in, and there's been quite a lot of it so far too. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
No, we're out of time. Sorry, Sam.
Well, who's made the decision regarding the consultation? 'Cause
Sam.
we didn't make it initially.
Sorry, we're out of time. No questions.
Right, so we're
gonna
shutting
move
down
on
democracy again. Fantastic. Wonderful. This is why people don't like cycleways. It's because, Sarah, we ram them through with
Excuse me,
no
Sam.
proper process.
Sam.
Yes?
Go, Sam.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. On the point of order is, why can the councillor not just ask a process question?
Because the item is finished as a public forum, and we've moved on to the next item.
Yeah, because it doesn't suit Aaron.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'd like to hear from Sarah if she's
No.
gonna back me up for once.
Anyhow, no deputations. There's no petitions. Move on to item 7.
And all the meetings actually carry on so efficiently.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry. Do we have staff?
John and Laura, are you going to come to the table? Good luck.
Welcome. If you guys would like to give just a brief overview of this report, and then we'll take questions. Thank you.
It's a presentation.
We have a presentation,
Excellent.
if you're able to get that up for us. I'll start and it should hopefully pop up. There we go. So the Central City is a key regeneration priority area. The Biennial Report outlines key elements of council-funded regeneration activity between July and December 2020. The report is structured to reflect the 5 categories of the Central City Action Plan. We're just going to run through a short 5-minute presentation on the key highlights from the report, and then we're happy to answer any questions. A refreshed version of the Central City Action Plan was endorsed by Council in October. The new version includes an updated set of activities in response to the challenges posed by COVID-19. An evaluation report of the first edition of the Central City Action Plan indicated good progress across most areas. There is also good progress towards our ambitions that are set out in the Central City Outcomes Framework. The graphics measuring progress towards these ambitions are woven throughout the report and are available on the Central City Insights webpage. One of our ambitions is that 18% of all Christchurch retail sales are made in the 4 avenues by 2028. We are currently sitting at 19%, but this needs to be sustained throughout seasonal differences. Shown here is a detailed view of Central City weekly spending, which shows that although there was a substantial loss of trade during the COVID-19 lockdown, the Central City has bounced back strongly. The latest spending data is also available on our web pages. Good progress was made against sites on the barrier sites list. 4 properties were removed from the list, whilst significant progress was made on a further 3 sites. In December, the council also initiated a vacant sites program. A number of projects were delivered throughout the Urban Regeneration Capital Program. Pictured here is a couple of projects completed this biennial period. Lighting of the Public Trust Building, a collaborative project with Ira students to enliven their High Street facade, and 2 of the lighting projects that supported Christchurch's Lit. The grant funding for city making partners supported Gapfiller, Green Lab and the CCBA to run events and installations in the city. The rate of building Central City homes has accelerated year on year. In this 6-month period, over 100 homes were completed, with another 320 in the pipeline. A more detailed breakdown is available on the dashboard. We'll also show you some new data after this presentation on our webpage. So the main goal of the Central City residential program is to promote housing development and grow the Central City population over the next 10 years. Latest population estimates show the population increased by 8.3% from 2019 to 2020. Overall, this is a 20% increase since 2012. During 2020, the Central City residential program undertook engagement with residents through a conversation walk series. Opportunities raised during the walks are now being explored to improve residential amenity in our Central City neighbourhoods. Through Project 8011, we are looking to promote the lifestyle of living in the Central City. Although Christchurch NZ has confirmed that this is not part of their mandate, staff are looking into a variety of initiatives, including developing web pages that promote Central City neighbourhoods and sharing a series of stories from local residents. Key council-produced events include Christchurch's Lit, which attracted 20,000 attendees in July, and New Year's Eve with over 23,000 attendees. In the Smart Christchurch space, we saw the development of the Bin Good game, new data sets added to SmartView, and 20 new pedestrian cameras added. Progress was made on a number of key Central City developments. Pictured here is the roof trusses added to Metro Sports, the reinstatement of the Edmonds Ban Rotunda, and a new section of the South Frame Greenway opened. I'm just going to flick over to our data. Sorry, guys. So this is an example of one of our Central City Insights web pages, which shows the latest data of building consents, which shows against our ambition of reaching 20,000 residents by 2028. So here we have the latest population estimates. We can see in 2020 that there's 7,170. And this is the pipeline of what we need to do to reach 20,000 residents. We were going to show you the animated bar graph that we've just added, which shows how the Central City compares to all our other suburbs. And we see that we kind of bounce around over the last 20 years, but in recent years we've exceeded most of the greenfield subdivisions and the amount of building consents. Might have to circulate a link to that because I'm not sure Internet Explorer likes this new graph that we've added, but we can show you that later. If you're happy, we can jump through to questions.
Questions? Jimmy?
Regarding to this chart, the central city population, the chart, 8.3% growth. That's is a brown line, or is the council estimate line? Which line? 8.3%.
So, bottom graph, the bottom line here is the estimate for, is it 3%?
Oh, that's an estimate.
Yeah.
Oh, but how about real situation, real? How much percentage growth, real?
So we've had an 8.3% growth from 2019 to 2020.
That's real?
Yes.
Critical figure?
Yes.
Okay, based on this figure up to 2028, how many population will be occupied in CBD? How many?
If we do 8% each year,
Yeah. How
it'll
many?
far exceed our estimate because we need a 3% to 5% bracket to reach the 20,000 ambition. So,
So we are above,
Yes.
above. Okay, thank you. I just.
Andrew?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, if I can. Keen to know what your view would be of what's driving the increase in the volume of residential development in the central city. What would you attribute that increase in the amount of development to?
I don't think we can put our finger on anything specifically, but certainly returning Kiwis and those coming from overseas may be more accepting of more denser urban living environments, and that may be driving a lot of this. But also, you know, there is a lot of good supply coming on board. I mean, you know, you've got a mixture from your sort of Williams Court type properties right through to higher end apartments and executive houses. So I think it's just that there is a good range and diversity there that appeals to a variety of groups. So
are we seeing a situation where increased demand is leading to an increased appetite for development?
That's certainly what we're hearing.
Okay. And is there any comment on, you know, what we're trying to do in the central city is to build community. Demand is one thing, but the demographic that demand is coming from plays directly into, you know, building a real community. So have you got any comments on the sort of prices that these developments are attracting, the sort of demographic that they're appealing to? You know, what sort of price range are we looking at? Are we seeing prices increasing? And are we looking at properties that could be described as affordable, or are they, you know, predominantly outside of the affordable range? So just some comments, I guess, on, you know, price expectations, any price increases that we might be seeing. You'd expect to see that in line with demand, and really just around the type of people that have been attracted to these properties and to be part of this central city community.
I'll refer you to John Scallon here, who's leading the programme.
Just jump in there. So back at tail end of 2019, we asked the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand to do a bit of a study around some of those drivers, and they confirmed what we already suspected in terms of the target market. A lot of activity in the 450,000 to 550,000 range in terms of units being built. That's what the developers and the real estate agents told us they were working to. You know, that's over a year ago now. Just looking at prices at the moment. A quick scan of real estate pages at the moment reveal there's plenty of homes available. You know, two bedroom in the sort of 400 to 550 range. One bedrooms from 250 to 400. So there's a good range there. Far fewer available 3 bedrooms and up, which is what we'd expect, given that they're targeting the 1 and 2 bedroom apartment and small townhouse market. But there's a lot of activity there, and perhaps to add to John's comments before about this being both a demand supply issue, I think the supply issue is critical, and I think the developers that are particularly active in the central city are really getting a measure of how to build in the central city. They're finding sites, they're dealing with the ground conditions well, and they've got some good, well-tried models which they can now bring to the market to deliver houses. And there's also a big range of houses, so we have some high-end apartments being built as well as lots of more affordable townhouses, which are reasonably affordable compared with the rest of Christchurch, and particularly for a central city location.
So plenty of demand, plenty of supply. Are we seeing that drive any change or increase in prices?
I think prices in general are increasing in Christchurch as they are across the country. But looking at the figures today, there's not a huge increase in prices in the central city compared to where they were a year ago. We could probably do some further analysis around that and look at a bigger data set and perhaps give you some figures on that. I don't have them to hand today, though.
I think that would be helpful. Given that we're hearing nationally, in excess of 20% price increases year on year, and we're seeing that reflected in some parts of Christchurch, it would be good to know what the effect is in the central city.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tim.
Yeah, thank you. The targets are to have people living in the central city, but it seems that, and if you go overseas, there are many places in the central cities, whether it's in the examples when we started this journey many years ago was, New York and da-da-da, but there are a lot of rentals. So you have a large building with flats, and that's the norm overseas, but we seem to be concentrating on ownership. What's the plan, for instance, or are there any plans or any discussions with regards to buildings that are planned to be rental? So at the moment, we're looking at affordable, depending on where you are in your earnings. So I'm just wondering if that's been anywhere in here.
I think it's a good question. I think that reflects I think the way residential buildings are built in New Zealand is different than some big cities in the world where you get that the build to rent purpose-built building. So a big apartment block is built entirely with the intention of renting out long term, perhaps as a long-term investment by one owner. Here the model, and it's found in the central city, is very much individual apartments, individual townhouses are built for individual sale. Now that may be to investors, that may be to owner-occupiers. New build properties, small new build properties, 1 and 2 bedroom, low maintenance for the first few years, very attractive to investors, so you can understand why investors like to buy in the central city. Strong demand, as noted, easy to rent out, but owner-occupiers are also being targeted by some of the developers. But I'm not 100% sure that we have that sort of purpose built to rent market yet in the central city, where developers are building big apartment buildings for rental and then holding those apartment buildings rather than selling them as soon as they're built. I'm not aware of any developments along that using that model.
So prior to the earthquake, and I used this earlier this morning, the example being the Power Rubber building, it was full of flats, and there are others along City Mall that behind the facade there were a number of flats attached to the upper stairs. So I guess that when we were looking at 20,000 people in the central city by 2028, and at the moment we've been going for 11 years, and obviously we had a very rough start, and momentum takes time, and I think we're really at about 35%. So I guess there has to be an understanding that there is obviously after an earthquake there is a slight change in the way we go forward, but yeah, it's just interest, just a comment.
Can I just quickly note the levers that council has to intervene in what you're describing are limited. They really rest with, I guess, the government to look at introducing levers that make long-term renting a more attractive proposition for people. There's lots of things that in our legal system and our laws actually disincentivise that. But the other thing that I just wanted to remind council is a part of the Project 8011 program that you signed off includes looking at housing diversity. So the team continue to look at and investigate options to see how we can bring a diverse range of houses to the market, and that includes not just the form but also the type, the tenancies, the other kind of diversity that you can get. But again, there's limited opportunity for council to intervene in there. Having said that, you have provided some loan facilities in the past, and that's one of the levers that you continue to have.
Yanni then Anne.
Thank you. I think that's a really interesting point that Tim's touched on. Are we measuring the rate of home ownership within the 4 AVs?
So we have that data through Statistics New Zealand, and we can see the rates of owner-occupiers, and we look at that by neighbourhood as well.
So what's that been showing? What's the trend there?
So we can definitely gather some more information on that. It's not currently on this dashboard, but it might be a good addition to add in the future.
Yeah.
So we find that there is quite high rates of renting in the central city, and some areas have higher rates of owner-occupiers. But definitely in the east of the central city, it's higher rates of renting.
I think that'd be really interesting information, because I think, yeah, it's quite interesting about that whole home ownership issue. I was going to ask in terms of, you made some comment about developers are getting really good at this. I was just interested in what outcomes we're seeing in terms of urban design. I guess my sense is we're seeing a deterioration again in the urban design outcomes. Is that a fair comment, or is it? I mean, I know what's permissible under the district plan is very reduced in terms of urban design, but just putting the legal side to you know, putting the legal stuff to one side, do we get a sense of, are we getting good urban design outcomes or improving our urban design outcomes in the central city, or is it deteriorating?
I think I can only really refer you back to the work that was reported to you a few months ago by the urban design team, that, you know, there were some gains in many areas, and there are still some areas for work. So that's probably all I can comment on. It would purely be speculation, I think, from our point of view at this stage. If you've got any more to add, John.
Okay.
No, I can only offer you my opinion on urban design, but yeah, I refer back to the work that is a separate work stream through our urban design team.
Yeah, but where we're providing direct financial assistance, do we have any controls on urban design, or on things like retention of trees?
It's not a criteria within, for example, the development.
We provide rates funded DC contributions to developers.
It's not a criteria within the DC rebate scheme or anything like that.
Okay. And the final question is, there's lots of mapping going on, and as someone who's just been through the tree policy hearing, I just wondered, do we have any tool that's measuring the ecology and the sustainability and the trees in the central city in terms of carbon? Like, do we have any sort of tool that's showing what's happening in terms of green space and trees within the central city, contrasted with the development that's occurring?
We've certainly got records of, obviously, parks and open space that, you know, council run and operate, and anything else. And there are records of tree coverage. I think understanding how that's changing over time is not something we developed at this stage, but that may be another area.
Yeah, I guess I look at the photos of the south frame, and I mean, for those of us that were here at the time, we expected a beautiful green campus-style cycleway going through, and we certainly haven't got that. But I guess I am a little bit concerned that we don't have enough green space in parts of the central city. And I know previously, for example, the community board and the council had a plan to acquire little parklets and, you know, alleyways through in the inner city east, for example, where there was a gap. So really interested if there was anything that we could understand in terms of what's happening, and then have a strategic approach. Thank you.
I mean, it's something I guess we've been looking at in the context of the climate change strategy as well. You know, there's very clear crossovers there, but at this stage, that's very early thinking.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for the report. Good report.
Yeah, thank you. It is a great report. Thank you. Just thinking about getting families into the inner city and different housing models, you know, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom places, and looking at different ways of getting people into home ownership through shared equity and that sort of thing, rent to own. Are those the sorts of things, Carolyn, that you were indicating that you were looking at? And yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Within the Project 811 workstream, there is an area that's looking at alternative housing and how we can support alternative housing. There has to date obviously been some direct support, but apart from that, we're also looking at talking with alternative housing providers, and this is everything from social housing through to co-housing groups, and how we can support them to consider the central city for projects. And those are generally aimed at sort of long-term tenure, pathways to owner-occupying, larger homes to accommodate larger families. So all those sort of aspects are being discussed with co-housing providers, and what are the impediments to them sort of looking at the central city for those sort of developments, and how can council support those sort of developments going forward.
That would be great to have that feedback, you know, that knowledge, that understanding. Thank you.
Wow.
On the DC rebates, I didn't want to make any kind of guesses from the data, so could you give a comment on kind of what you think the uptake will be over, say, the next year to 2 years? Because it looks like it will be sort of used, you know, relatively, well, it has been relatively slow over the last 6 months, if that's right. So do you, I'm asking, you looking to see sort of more of the qualifying developments of increasing the amount over the next 6 months to a year or 2 years?
I don't have, unfortunately, the latest figures on where the DC rebate funding is at, but clearly if we get a big increase in development, then that fund will be used up more quickly. We could probably come back to you with a bit of further information on that. Don't have the figures to hand, unfortunately.
And looking at the graph on the residential building consents with homes with consents that have been issued but not started, and homes under development, there's a lot with consents, but only a few relatively that are actually starting to be under development. So to me it would look like the uptake might increase as time goes by. It'd like the rate of uptake.
Yeah, so actually the graph that's on the screen at the moment shows there's actually been in the last year, there's been a big upswing in developments that have been completed, over 400 last year, and yeah, as you can see, there's actually quite a bit in the pipeline. We suspect more to come on. It's quite early in the year, so by the end of the year, those figures could actually look even higher than that. So there's a lot on the way.
Right, thank you. I'm happy to move this report. Do I have a seconder? Anne, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Opposed? Do you want to debate receiving a report? Yeah, sure. Jan?
Thank you. Just to highlight that, I commend staff for the report. It's really good. I do think we need to think about the sustainability and the ecology in the central city, and I just think it's really important. I know through the tree hearing policy process, we will be coming with some recommendations to council, but I think what's really critical is measuring what's happening in terms of green space. Ironically, when you look at this report, you see the on one of the pages, 36, you see reference to the South Frame Greenway, and to call that a greenway, you know, it's really not. And so there is a part of our central city that is really devoid of green space and trees. And I do think we need to start turning our mind to that, particularly where we see intensification. And often what we see is with that intensification, very mature trees being removed and not adequate replacement in terms of the environmental impact. So we'll flag that through the tree hearing policy. I think is better than doing it today, but I just wanted to acknowledge the work that staff are doing. And I do think we need to be mindful of the issue around home ownership, and also speculative investment properties being built as well. So, you know, it would be good to make sure that the incentives that we're providing are going to helping people be able to afford either to rent or own a home, not just creating additional wealth for people that are already some of the wealthiest in our city or in our country. So I look forward to us having that conversation at some stage. Cheers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right, all those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I'll get Anne to close the meeting with a card.
Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa, paunamo ki moana, hei hoa rahi mea, tātou i te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa, huia, tā iki e. May peace be widespread, may the sea be like greenstone, a pathway for us all this day. bind us together.